Good morning, and thank you for joining this month's Worksoft webinar, Testing Above and Beyond Packaged Apps. Today, we're pleased to have a team of Worksoft automation experts on hand to share a series of demonstrations of the many ancillary applications that can be tested with Worksoft Certify. Without further ado, I will turn it over to our Vice President of Product Management, Chris Kraus. Chris?
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, everyone. So in our agenda, we'll do a short introduction, but I'm very excited we're going to get straight up to the demonstrations. We get customers say, I didn't know you did stuff other than SAP. And of course we do. We do mainframe. We do custom web applications. Phil's going to show you some cool things in image objects, how you can do OCR, look for images on like opaque panels. And then Eric's going to show you Microsoft Office and mobile applications, which are actually becoming very, very interesting for people. So today, I'll be presenting mainframe because I'm the guy with the gray hair in the picture here. We've got Jivan Konetti, who's a senior solution architect out of India, who's going to show us how he does a lot of work with custom web applications. I've got Phil Bell out of the UK, who's a senior solution architect, who's going to talk about image objects and what he's done with OCR and finding that hard-to-find button on a UI. And then we'll wrap it up with Eric Leisberg, our senior solution architect, who's going to show us some really cool things with Microsoft Office and Excel and mobile testing. I do get a lot of questions about, can you test Microsoft Office apps and format things and all that cool stuff. So to kind of set stage, end-to-end test automation. Well, that's very synonymous with Worksoft and Certify, and people think about how do we automate business processes across your entire landscape. And usually when you look at a webinar with Worksoft, we'll talk about SAP UI, or we'll talk about Fiori and the new S/4HANA migrations, and sometimes Salesforce and these apps. But a lot of times we don't talk about the things outside of those big major packaged applications. You know, it's easy to talk about SuccessFactors and Salesforce and S/4HANA and Workday. What we're going to focus on today is like, how do you actually test a mainframe application? So you have an Angular, just a custom web app, image objects, Office, and then mobile. And quite honestly, we find that customers tell us, hey, I test SAP, but SAP is not everything. Every piece of data goes through SAP, but it's one step. Sometimes it's in mainframe, sometimes it's in our mobile apps, sometimes our customer apps, you know, out to reports in Microsoft Office. So it's integral, but there's lots of things around it. And that's what we're going to show you today. So Chris Kraus here. I'm going to walk through mainframe testing. So believe it or not, Worksoft has been testing mainframe applications since about 1998. The original patent for object action framework came from this concept. And it's very easy, and we have comprehensive testing on mainframe. We basically have the screen learn, which is kind of the old school. We did this in 1998. Some people call this XScan or finding or learning screens, and it's fine, but it's quite honestly, it's very old. Yeah, that's how we did it in the 90s. And then I'll show you how we do it with the live touch, how you can get more interactive with the screens themselves, which I think is just much more interesting. So over here on the right, I have capture. I have my mainframe screen here. So say I want to go to option 1 to browse. Instead of going through the laborious thing of finding and learning and scanning screens, all I have to do is highlight what I'm interested in and click. And what I'll see is Live Touch will add that step to my test. So one step, nothing else I need to do. No 6 steps to learn a map, right? Come over to Live Touch and say, hey, I'm interested in the project, the group, the type, the member, you know, maybe my input field and my panel. So very quickly, all I have to do is skip across the fields and I can learn them. No multiple steps of maps, resolves, and all that craziness. So if I look at one of these, so if I double click, I'll see, yep, it captured Worksoft, so I can actually see the text that it captured. Now, what's interesting is people say, well, you know, you did a verify down here, but this was an input step. And maybe I don't want that to be an input step. Maybe I want that to be something like a verify step. So all you have to do is come over here and you can say store, and maybe I want to store that value into a variable, or verify, and I can actually say, I want this to be equal to Worksoft. And what happens is I can actually edit these tests interactively. So I've now done a verify versus an input. So quite honestly, it is amazingly easy to test these mainframe things. All you have to do is touch them and then save them back to Certify. And you'll see, hey, it automatically identified this as a mainframe screen. So we have a positive object action catalog built dynamically and fast. And I can see here, there's my input field, we're there, there's my verify field. I can say, I want this to say maybe verify to Chris or whatever. Maybe it's, less than or contains, anything like that. So super easy to actually edit and work with these mainframe screens. So what you'll find unique about Worksoft with Capture and our integration of LiveTouch to it is it's one step. Show me test generated. We know in many other tools, I go through 7 steps of process to create a model and then create your tests and create your sheets. But quite honestly, that's just silly. It just takes too much time. So I showed you how easy it is to do mainframe. So what I'm going to do is walk over to Jivan, and Jivan is going to show us how he actually does this with custom web applications. So the neat thing is Jivan is over in India, in Bengaluru, and does this all the time. And he says, one of the biggest questions I get is, how do I test custom web applications? And so, Jivan, can you show us how you do that?
Sure, Chris. Thank you very much. I hope my audio on screen looks okay.
Perfect.
I'm super excited to show this demo on the web automation. So in this demo, we're going to use a custom web application as a reference, which is built on top of Angular technology. In a standard web page, pretty much the entire page gets sent back with the new content from the web server for each of the user visit. But it is a little bit different when in the case of Angular applications, right? When a user hits a button or interact with an element or navigates to a next page, only the new content that is updated on the page. And hence the header, footer, and the navigational elements loaded initially along with the application. Then after that, only the changed content gets sent back to the page and it gets adjusted to the page elements. So in this demo, we will see how we automate such an application where Certify, the automation tool, does the heavy lifting on synchronous and asynchronous calls in here. So let me quickly turn into my Certify. So we have this simple web application. So I have Certify here. So let me launch Capture. So we're going to create a couple of activities in here. First, we'll start with login, turn it on. And I will go and interact with the application the way I would normally do to do my manual testing or business testing in here. So let me go back in here. Okay, log in. Oops. So let me pause in here. Okay. So since we have captured those steps already, I just paused. I did not want to duplicate these steps. That's all. So let me create the next activity, which is create an email. Turn it on. That's all. That it's that easy, right? So you create a new message, and every object that we interact with gets automatically captured in the right-hand side pane, which is called our intelligent capture 2.0. And let me send an email to Stephanie where she needs an order status. Yeah, send it. So once an email is sent, I would like to go to sent items and make sure my email is sent. Right, so I'm going to capture a screen image in here. So with that, the user journey is completed. So I'm going to send it back to our automation tool, which is Certify, to create the automation baseline for me. Right, that's it. So the automation process is created with an easy to read narrative for each of the actions that we have performed on different elements. And if you see the password element is grayed out. So that's the default mechanism of Certify to ignore the password data automatically, that your data is not leaked in from the business to the technical teams, right? So let me go ahead and uncomment that step and add the password from a masked variable in here. So with that, so a process is complete, which is going to start with login and then create a new email. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to add a simple utility, which is going to help us launch the Angular application as your process is completely context-free of the application state. So that's the intention, right? So let me close the application. So let's go ahead and execute this process. So let me minimize, yeah. Okay. So we have application launched. It goes into a messages module. Okay, so it's trying to enter. So let me see what's happening. Okay, so so let me quickly see the interface error message. I'm able to, okay, so that's not a problem. So let me go ahead and it might be the application dynamism that I see. Right, so let me go ahead and quickly close it and execute the process again. It should work. So right, so it should work actually. So we have all the information set up. Should launch the application. Okay. Yeah, perfect. So this is how you basically change your tests at runtime without having the need to do the maintenance later, right? So very good example for an Agile and DevOps process. So let me quickly show you another process that I have kept it ready, wherein so we interact with the transition ribbons, which is a very important thing in customer web applications, especially when it is built on top of modern frameworks, where you interact with the um, asynchronous calls between the web client and the server. So in this process, it's an extension to the process that we just built, and it will validate the transition ribbons, the green color items that you see on the bottom of the page. It validates them, see whether they are getting updated appropriately. Right. See where here, so I'm using the subject line in this process as well. Since I have changed the attributes at runtime in the previous process, it has got an effect on this new process as well. So with one touch in the maintenance, so you will be able to update in all the places that particular object is being used in your automation program. So with that, so I'm going to pass the baton back to my colleague Phil.
Thank you, Jeevan. So I'm going to talk about image objects. So it's a feature that's been in Certify for a while. I like it. So I've spoken about it a couple of times, but there's been an update to image objects to improve the way that we find text. So our OCR capabilities have been improved. So why would you use image objects? Well, it tends to be there's something on the screen. We can see it, but we're having trouble live touching it, or Capture doesn't want to play with it. There's something about it that's a bit awkward. But if we can see it, image objects lets us interact with it. So it uses the full image of the display, and it looks for something that we've told it to look for. So that might be a button that we identify with a couple of bookmarks. You know, what does the left-hand side of the button look like? What does the right-hand side? What's between that is a button. We might look for a specific image. So maybe we're going to react when we see a warning symbol come up on the screen. Or we can interact with text boxes. So obviously that involves quite a bit of text, but we can define an anchor image and then an offset from that by just selecting a piece of the screen to say, hey, there's a text box over here. And we can then enter text, we can read text, and so on. So as I said, the new part is that we've improved our character recognition. Okay, and we're actually going to teach it how to see the sort of text that we want to find. And it's going to learn that, and then we can use that as we go forward. So let me just bring up Certify. What I've got here is a pretend invoice. So it's a bit of documentation, in this case with some sort of fuzzy looking text, and you can end up in this situation for all sorts of reasons. First of all, I'm going to show this. So these are nice and clear, and I just want to use this to show image objects options. So as I said, there's buttons, there's images, and there's text boxes. So what I've got here is a button. I've selected a couple of little clips of the screen to say what the start and end of the button looks like. And I can do a practice live touch on one of these. So I just select that. And it's highlighted the button. And it's finding text, and it's read the text. Okay, so that's actually how we're going to identify that button, because it's a one definition of what a button looks like. And if I use this and I go to button 3, we should, yep, highlights button 3, and it's finding text. And this time we've got button 3. So we make one definition of what a button looks like, and we can reuse it over and over for any button that looks like that. So that's great. But where we have problems sometimes, for me, this works quite well, is the 3 comes back as a 3. Sometimes it will come back as an S. Sometimes it will come back as a $sign, particularly if you've got different text sizes, different screen resolutions. We need to resolve those kinds of problems and make the OCR a bit more robust. Images, I mean, I'll just show that they're here. So for instance, I had trouble getting a refresh button to work, so I just did an image object on it, and then that solved my problem. But where I'm really going to talk is in these text boxes. So let's come back to my my PDF here. So I've got an anchor image, which I'm using as the Adobe symbol, and then I've got an offset, which is going to look for a piece of text, which when I collected it was this. So it's going to look in this area on the screen. So if I select that, we can see that that works very well. It's highlighted it, it's found it, and it's found the text. But what if it didn't open up at 100%? What if for some reason on my screen, when I open a PDF, it opens up at 72.3, the ideal size for opening a PDF, I think you'll agree. Well, if I then try and click on it, it's not going to find it because it's a different size, the text looks different, and all sorts of things. So what we have, if I come in to edit that object, like I used one object against many buttons, I can use one object and put into it different image sets to say, hey, this is how you find it. So try out all of these image sets to see if you can find this object. So let me just put this in here. I'm just going to give it another name. New. So now I need to go and find my anchor. So let me try that again. I need to click that button there. Okay. So can I find that? Yes, I can find that. Excellent. So I'll use that image. Where's my text box? Well, my text box is down here. So I want this. Can I find that? Oh, can I find that? Yes. Good. Now, if I do OCR text and I come and I touch on that, we found it. but the text, it's not quite right. So I'm going to train it as to what I think it should be. So that should be TG22. And now I'm going to do an AI search. So it's going to look at what I've told it should be, and what the actual piece of the screen that it's looking for, and it's going to select the best way of finding that piece of text that I think it should be. So that's going to search through its options. Okay. So this is what it's managed to return, TG22 bike mirror. If it hadn't been able to do it for some reason, it would just come back blank. And I can now say, hey, when are we looking at this object? Use the AI search results for this. Okay. So now, if I try a find, this is what failed before, it couldn't find it. Now it can see it at 72.3, and it can still see it at 100% as well. Okay. Yes, I'd love to save my changes. Once you've done that kind of thing, what it means is that you can run up a process with all your standard sorts of steps in it. And then when you get to one of these things, I've got a step in here, for instance. If I come into edit object, I can see, I've got an attribute string for the object. It's an image object attribute string, and it's going to use the definitions that exist for that type of object. So the PO number in this case. Okay, and there may be 3 or 4 different screen sizes and text sizes. It's going to filter through and see if it can use that to find anything that's there. So I'm going to close that, and I'll run this process. So this is a process that's going to run. It's going to use image objects. It's going to read a PDF that's just an image. It's not a table or anything like that. And it's going to input the data into SAP for us. So it's loaded the PDF. It should be reading the information off that. And then it should load SAP. And there we go, data's going in. Some of this data was what was collected as image objects, so the TG22, for instance, that went in as the material. And we're done. That's a process. I can go in, use image objects, find things, in this case in a scanned document, but it might be anything on the screen that's just a bit tricky for any of the other options to get hold of. And you can use it, as you've seen, in processes. So that's my piece of this done. I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to hand this over to Eric to carry on with the next piece. Over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Phil. So with the Office applications, we're able to automate these different interfaces very easily. And the way you do it is using our rich object action framework. So it's a little bit like when you're modifying or optimizing maybe a web or an SAP test to add extra steps to verify and things like that. You'll build out your steps this way. In some cases, to interact with the menus and things like that, you can use send keys, as well as our image object capability that Phil just showed, as well as our rich capability to do work with menus using our Silverlight or new Net UI interfaces if you need to be able to work with a specific maybe plugin for SAP that might be like IBP or BW or some of the other plugins, and those can be automated through our rich understanding of Windows and .NET applications. So with that, we'll go into the demo if you want to go to the demo. So here in Certify, we're just going to create a new process to be able to carry out the automation. And what that process is going to do is work through the application and carry out the process here. So here we're setting up a record set. to be able to export some information that we have in our system, in this case, and a rich set of users we're going to use for some testing. And we're able to set up the file details of where we want this record set to go, and give a path. And we're going to send these records out as just a comma-separated file. And then once we've done that, we're going to next go in and set up an Office application here. So this is, if you don't have this Office application showing up, make sure your admin team sets this up for you and enables Office applications as one of the interfaces supported for your project if you're not seeing that option when you're doing automation in Worksoft Certify. So now we're going to take, we've saved that out, and now we're opening it in Excel. And we're setting up a couple steps here. You can see we just easily add steps by inserting a new step below, or just creating a new step and then setting the appropriate action we want to take. In this case, for Excel, we're opening up the Excel workbook, and then we're going to go ahead and do some basic formatting on the Excel workbook. So here we can understand what it takes, in this case, to pick a range and from A to G in our Excel sheet, and then we want to apply some formatting. In this case, we want to widen out the columns. And so there's specific keystrokes that you can send into Excel to do various automation steps by holding the Alt key down. It'll show you what the options are for all the menus and ribbons. So there's an Alt H, O, and then an I that allow us to be able to set the width of the columns automatically. So by sending that keystroke combination using our object action type keys framework step, it allows us to be able to automatically widen those columns appropriately. So then we can copy those same two steps, and now we just want to highlight from A1 through G6 the specific steps that represent the cells we want to format. In this case, we want to provide some nice table formatting to those cells. And so the Alt keystrokes are Alt H and T, and we can just try that out in a test scenario and make sure that that's working properly, and then hit the Enter key twice, and that'll automatically format the table that way. So we'll do the same thing here. And then we can add additional steps that'll basically take the action to pass those Enter key steps. So you have the ability to type keys directly into the interface of Excel, or you can also just send keys using our standard system send key action. And you can put in for special keys that aren't just a letter, there's key codes for those, like the Enter key, and you can do a help to look at what all those different key codes are for the control keys and things like that. So passing a couple Enter keys and then just letting it do its formatting. We can put in a brief pause to allow us to be able to pause the formatting, and then make sure that it's done, and then we'll go ahead and copy that. So copy operation, in this case, we can just pass a Control-C to copy that into our clipboard, because we're now going to take this over to Word so that we can send this via an email. So we take this record set that we've now formatted in Excel, and we're going to paste it over into Word. So of course we need to launch the Word application. And before we launch it, we want to make sure we minimize Excel, just so that it's out of the way during the execution. We could also just close Excel if we wanted to as well, and save the results if we needed those. But if we just need to temporarily use Excel as a formatting area, we don't have to necessarily save our results. We can just keep it out of the way while we copy the information over. So now we're going to go in and switch, now that we've added a new step, to specifically automate Word. And with Word, we're able to do all the same kind of things that you would normally do maybe with macro language scripting, VB script, or things like that. But as you can see, we've got this rich object action framework with all the choices and parameters that you would want to set without you having to understand how to write code or work inside of a scripting window. So this makes our scriptless platform very powerful for a broader set of users to be able to take advantage of. So in this case, we now want to paste the information that we had from Excel formatted nicely over into Word. So we're saying, hey, send the Control V key, which is the little caret, upward pointing arrow with a V, and it'll send the Control V into Word, which will paste that nicely formatted Excel sheet now into Word. And then we can save this Word document so that we have it as something we can attach to an email. So we can just define the file name we want to use for the document, and we can save that document and then close the document. So you can see here we're just going along and adding new steps or inserting steps below, and that just makes a copy of the prior step, and we can just change the action. So it's real quick to build out these steps this way. So we'll go ahead and close that same document so we'll now have access to it as we work with Outlook to open the document. And with Outlook, what we're able to do is either automate the Outlook rich client. So if you've got the Outlook profile already configured to connect to an inbox, then you can use the rich client on the machine and automate that. Or with a release coming here later this month, we'll have the ability to also connect via Office 365's APIs to be able to just send email to any Office 365 inbox, and also receive and filter emails and extract attachments and add attachments. So here we're going to be adding the attachment, so giving a file path to where that saved Word document is stored. It's got the formatted list of users that we want to test with, and we can give additional capabilities like body formatting. We can use variabilization if we want to be able to dynamically define the subject or the body. And then once all this is looking good, go ahead and save and run this. So here we'll go ahead and just clean out any of the existing files and start up the process. And as it runs, you'll see that it just carries out all those objects and actions I asked to open up Excel and format it appropriately using the keystrokes I provided, copying that information over into the Word document, saving that formatted Word document appropriately as it runs through, and paste that, and then finally in Outlook or through the Office 365 email client coming this month, be able to send that as an attachment and be able to see that that actually did get sent. And we can also, since I sent it to myself, I'll just go into my own inbox here and see that, yep, sure enough, there's my attachment that's been received, and it has the information that I expected, and so I'm able to see that the process was carried out. So I was able to do all those 17 steps in about 30 seconds, which is nice and quick, and I can even look at a rich report with details using our capabilities to create reporting, either templated reporting or custom templates that we can create using business process procedure reporting, BPP, which is part of our platform. So that's just some example. You can even automate PowerPoint. We've automated PowerPoint doing some interesting things in the past as well, to be able to click through slides as part of a demo. So pretty much any Office application, as well as plugins and add-ins, even macros, can be executed from these rich object actions we provide. So next we'll look at the mobile platform and learn more about what it's able to provide. So here in the mobile testing options with Worksoft, you can see that we've got a couple different ways that we can connect to mobile applications. We work with industry-leading application companies such as Experience and Perfecto Mobile that provide rich mobile device testing frameworks and platforms, so that you're able to get best-of-breed support there and able to use their platform strengths whenever you need to. If you've got teams that want to work with a device just plugged directly into their own laptops, we support that tethering capability with Experience, our third generation and richest mobile connection integration experience. You can also plug into a machine in your data center or closet, and you can also plug into a machine that's located in the cloud that you set up, or these organizations, Experience and Perfecto, also have their own cloud-hosted devices. So if you need to get to a rich variety of device types, you're able to just connect to those, and that way you don't have to deal with the maintenance management overhead of the devices themselves and keeping them updated and current. They'll take care of all that for you. They have huge racks of devices in these data centers around the globe to help you do that. So those are your three options, and you can even use a mix of the two, testing on-prem, but then repointing to tests that run up in the cloud if you need to get a variety of devices to run those tests against. On the next slide, the Worksoft mobile architecture specifically shows you the way that we're configured. So for some of our demonstration purposes, we actually just have a handful of devices plugged into a machine that sits in one of our data closets, and it has an iPad, an iPhone, as well as an Android phone and tablet. So we've basically got the two operating systems, iOS and Android, that we can test, as well as the two form factors, phone and tablet. And we can test that way. And then when we're satisfied with those tests, we can then just repoint our same existing scripts and tests to the cloud environment that Test has set up for us, and be able to then do the same sort of testing there. We're able to test iOS and Android applications. Like I mentioned, these applications can be rich client applications that are the apps themselves, so native applications written in Xcode or Java or Swift or other technologies. They can be hybrid applications written in various technologies, Xamarin and others, or they can be just web applications that are running in Safari or Android that we need to be able to work with. And on desktops and Mac applications, we can work with browsers like Chrome and Safari and Firefox and Internet Explorer and Edge as well, so we can hit all the different sort of device types that you need to reach. So let's go over to the demonstration now. So this is a interesting demonstration of our ability to capture both web and mobile and be able to generate documentation and automation. This will actually be a two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication example, sometimes called one-time passcode, where we're all familiar with, hey, I need to log into my cloud provider or something, and my company or my cloud provider requires me to verify on my device that it's working and that it is, I am who I say I am, so it uses my device as a second form of authentication. So we're actually going to go in and connect to the mobile device environment. So we have a mobile connector. This is all just capability built into your Worksoft Certify platform. You may not even realize it, but it's just sitting there. You just got to configure it to point to the right environment. Here we can see devices that are set up and ready for us to connect to through the Test portal. And then we can open up and connect to those devices, resize the experience. If we're on a large monitor or a small monitor, we can adjust the sizing. It'll basically reserve the device and make sure that it's locked for our use only and attached to it. So we can start automating it. You'll see that it's in use in the portal. So you know that it's being now reserved, and you can see who has different devices. That way you can easily share these devices and request control if you need to take over control from a device. And then you basically just start using the device. Here we're just providing friendly steps that can become reusable processes by giving them friendly names. So now we're actually jumping over to the web and doing web automation and capturing web automation. So you can actually capture your automation of mobile and web side by side. Our interface capabilities are rich enough to actually understand, okay, you're in a web browser, let's capture what you're doing over there. Now that you've tried to log into, in this case, the iCloud or into your company's website, your mobile device is now prompting you whether or not to allow. So now we can actually hop over and through our mobile connector actually approve that, and we can live touch using the fingerprint the specific control that we're going to want to read that code from. And then that's the code that we're then going to want to enter into the web browser to confirm that we are who we say we are. Two-factor authentication in action here. So we'll put those details in, and of course, Capture diligently picks up each of the objects and the steps we carry out using that rich web framework that Jivan showed earlier. So now that we've got that, we can take screenshots along the way to verify that things worked. We can verify text on the screen or a specific image using image object that Phil showed you. and be able to then, of course, just make sure that we saw a greeting. In this case, it says, "Good evening, Eric." So if I see a specific greeting like the word good morning, good evening, the word good, or my name in there, I know that it's successfully logged in. Can look at the URL or other information on the screen to verify everything worked. And then, of course, finally, I can close out of the application. First the mobile device and then the web application, and capture all these as reusable steps along the way. So this ability to capture this end-to-end process makes it obviously nice and quick and easy to do this. You would just carry out the steps like you would yourself. And now that we've got all these stored off, we can save this off. So we'll go ahead and store off the capture. In this case, we could bring it right back into Certify if we wanted to, or if we need some rich documentation to help us with training or requirements or user story or test case documentation that may be out of date or that we don't even have. The great thing with our analyze capability in Worksoft is that it'll actually take that information that we've just captured and allow us to route it into our analysis portion. So with Analyze, it can look at the workflow, and it can also create the documentation for that rich process. So here we can see that captured process is now here. We want to create a document. We can create it in Word or PDF, templatize it with a rich header or footer with whatever details. Since we're doing this on an iOS device, we'll go ahead and use Apple logo details here. So we've customized the header, and we can see who carried out the process and what the steps were that the process went through. And we can see that both in Word as well as PDF. So we support both formats. If you want to be able to go and edit it later and you don't have the full Adobe Acrobat editor, you can just use Word document format so that you're able to work with it in Word and make changes and use that for other purposes within the organization for compliance or training and other things. But you can see here that you get each screenshot, each individual object step with an object or control screenshot, and nice English narrative of what each step was. I clicked on something, I typed in something, I verified something. You can even sign off on that information. So the ability to generate something like this is part of the Worksoft platform, specifically in our Analyze capability, and coming in our RPA capability here later this month as well, automatically. So here, same thing, Word or PDF, nice, friendly, consistent format. So now what we can do is take this and generate the automation. So if we were just going straight into Certify, of course, we could just capture and go right back to Certify, or import that XML, or with Analyze, of course, it'll generate the automation for us to bring into Certify. So now we look at this automation in Certify, and we can see all those friendly steps are now processes in Certify. And this is the various steps to log in and read the mobile codes, type those codes into iCloud, and finally sign out. And we've got a record set that'll store what that code was, a record set to drive what mobile device to connect to, what browser to connect to, what login credentials, with masking and encrypting of sensitive passwords that are all built in, and we'll even store off these individual codes as we go through the 6-digit code that gets passed back, so we can review that later if we need to. Simply running this process then will take us through the same steps that we captured, which is basically to go and execute against a given device. We can see that iPhone is now being locked for execution instead of for capture. So it's going to make sure to grab that device, then it's going to connect to the web application, the iCloud app, and basically start carrying out the grabbing of the 6-digit numbers, and then from the mobile device and passing those over to the web browser, so you can move back and forth between interfaces very readily for end-to-end testing. And so you could even be going off to Excel sheets, or going over to SAP, or going up to Salesforce, or a custom web app to do these kind of things, in this case iCloud. We can see that ran in about 70 seconds and 59 steps, and we get timings of each of those sub-steps. You can see where it's fast or slow. We're also able to look at any specific details like the record set that was used to drive the test. We can see the code that came back from the test. If we need to see it later, we can see whether it worked or not. And of course, we can generate a rich report, either the custom one I showed before, BPP report, or the templated report out of Certify. Allows you to generate some result details with screenshots as well to document the pass-fail for governance, tracking, compliance purposes, proof points for whoever needs to know that it worked as expected. And any kind of verification steps, you can see those kind of details that it verified that we were really logged in so that we can pass our test successfully. And that we did actually get into the system and that the code did work. So, and we can see all the devices are now free again, so someone else can come in and now run their tests. So supporting of parallel mobile execution is something we can do in our Worksoft Execution Manager platform. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric, for the mobile demo. Thank you, Phil, for the image objects, Jeevan for custom web applications, and of course, me, the gray-haired guy, showed you Mainframe.